I have a marketing agency, and I see it as like literally an existential threat to what I do. So I'm very much like researching every single latest development in AI, because there's going to be a point where companies aren't going to be paying agencies like me to do what we do, right? I think it's pretty much getting there. You still need strategic people to manage the AI. You still need decision makers. Like, you need data into the AI to get good stuff out. So it's not, I shouldn't say it's a threat to the business as a whole. It's very much a big change to how the business will run.
Welcome to Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast.
Welcome into Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast. I'm Vince Quinn, and today we're talking about how AI has changed the concept of management in the workplace. And joining us for this conversation is Pete Gosling. Now, Pete is the principal of Gosling Media, which provides graphic design and growth marketing for B2B companies. He's also the author of Relentless Impact, Continuous Results in Business and Life. Pete, welcome to Future Fuzz.
Hi, Vince. Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about this idea of leadership, modern day leadership, and the impacts of AI here. So where have you seen the change? What does it look like for leadership as a result of AI?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fundamental shift that's happening. Everyone's, of course, talking about AI, but I don't think most people are really digging into like the actual changes that are happening. So through my agency, Gosling Media, I do a lot of consulting with tech startups, and I talk to a lot of the CEOs of these companies and how their go-to-market plans and how they're building out teams. And AI is taking over the kind of entry-level positions. So what you learn when you first graduate, you get a job as a junior designer in my case, or engineer for others, whatever it might be. You start as a junior and you work your way up. They're really cutting out hiring these low-level positions and expecting, the mid to senior people to essentially delegate to AI. So it's a skill set that most people haven't really been trained on, like how to manage people. And I say people, including AI in a situation, because the more it's adopted and the more sophisticated that these tools get, where they can connect into existing platforms, it is really like delegating tasks to a junior employee.
Yeah, which is a fascinating thing, because like you think about where this is all trending then, which means you're going to get to a point where starting now and in the next couple of years, it's going to be more increasingly common where you hire somebody that doesn't necessarily have work experience, and you're putting them in a management position over all of these AI bots for whatever responsibilities you need them to conduct. But you're coming in as low-level management.
It's true. And so I've been obsessed with this topic for a while, and I've been looking into it some more and been framing it as a problem of delinquent leadership. And that's a very dramatic term for basically people are put
please
into,
define that term, because I love it, but I want to hear how you describe
it's people being put into leadership positions without the knowledge or training or experience to really fulfill that role. And this is nothing new. So in tech startups in particular, which I know best, so I'll use that example. Typically, the founder is a technical person and they become leaders and they grow a team of people, but they're not necessarily good with people. They end up having to build out teams, and ideally they're bringing in people with those skills. But a lot of companies go through these issues where the leadership doesn't really know management skills. So for me personally, I started as a junior designer, then a designer, worked my way up to creative director, and now I have my own agency. So I've spent 20 years figuring this out, building teams from scratch. It's a lot to learn, right? So when startup founders get thrown into this role, it is a problem. It happens a lot where the businesses often fail through lack of leadership.
Yeah.
Lots of reasons why that happens. But
I can imagine. I mean, because from the things that I've seen and experienced, part of it is, okay, you are starting this business because you have a gift or a vision for this specific skill that you have for example. So great, you're really good at this certain thing. You think it's something that you can go monetize, you go build a business around it. But to be able to execute that thing and to be able to run a business are entirely different. So naturally, like you're saying, you're going to get these problems with all these, like how to manage other departments or even understanding how they operate or how you operate within them and hiring the right people for those things. Because maybe when you go to hire, you don't understand what that job needs because you've never had experience. So like there's all these different ways that it can go wrong for sure. And to think about that of, yeah, okay, you're the founder, so you are the CEO. Like it's natural that it goes that way, but it is a major transition in role. Like I'll quote, I don't know if you remember Mitch Hedberg, the old comedian.
Of course. Yeah, amazing.
So he was like, okay, so you're a chef. Can you farm? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that, right? But that's the thing that's happening all the time. And it sounds like that's happening at really every level of organizations.
People get promoted, and I can't remember the exact quote. I'm going to butcher it, but people get promoted until they kind of suck.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you're really good at something, so you get promoted and you keep getting up there. And then once you sort of plateau, it's like, okay, that's your position. And like I've been at sort of corporate roles or corporate jobs, I should say, where they have once a year, they'll bring in a workshop, external people to give a workshop on leadership. And they just don't actually get involved in any of the actual work. It's all just like a PowerPoint presentation and some team building exercises. There's no real leadership that relates to the actual day-to-day processes. Because I think most of the time the leadership issues are like communication and process breakdowns more than what personality type are you. Mm-hmm. I hate those Myers-Briggs things where it's like you have to understand your team's personality to be able to communicate with them. It's like, or work with them and understand it through work, I find is a much better way of doing it. So it's not something you can just flick a switch or pay $10,000 for some dude to come in. It's every day. So this concept of relentless impact is everyone's just hanging on by a thread at the moment. I feel I got diagnosed with ADHD in my late 30s, and a lot of the methods I use to help myself get through the symptoms, I think, are applicable to everyone because we're all just inundated with notifications and information. No one can keep up with the rapid pace of change. So a lot of people switch off when that happens. They kind of just like clam up and stop. But you need to be, I talk about feedback loops. This idea of relentless impact is built on every day repeating certain steps that you can learn and learn from others, but also look internally. So let me give a better example.
Sure.
I work in AI. I have a marketing agency, and I see it as like literally an existential threat to what I do. So I'm very much like researching every single latest development in AI, because there's going to be a point where companies aren't going to be paying agencies like me to do what we do, right? I think it's pretty much getting there. You still need strategic people to manage the AI. You still need decision makers. Like you need data into the AI to get good stuff out. So it's not, I shouldn't say it's a threat to the business as a whole. It's very much a big change to how the business will run. So if you're the CEO of, or anybody, even if you're a plumber, right? Your days, everyone's days are just solid. All my friends I know are just burnt out and exhausted. So the number one thing, the first sort of framework I was taught with ADHD was this STOP. And it basically stands for when you're feeling anxious and you got some bad news or whatever it might be that triggered the anxiety. Sometimes it's nothing, right? It just comes from within. They say stop. So S is literally stop.
Yeah.
Take a breath, observe, and proceed. So take a breath, literally taking a deep breath, but it's all about just don't be reactive to the situation. Try and separate yourself out from the situation. That's the observe, and then proceed. So I've been teaching this to some people I work with and I find it helps a lot just in your day to make sure you're carving out time to step back from the chaos. And in the book, I break down these steps and I adapt them to be more business focused. But observe is what's happening in the industry. So take a breath is what's happening in my business, what's happening in my personal life. Trying to look at it objectively without any emotion attached to it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening internally? What changes are happening? What my competitors doing? Is there a new tech that's going to make my product irrelevant? And then proceed with a plan. But the 5-year plan of a business or even 2-year is irrelevant because everything's changing so quick. So you need to be very much relentless cycles to have good direction in where you're going.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Yeah, I mean, to have these I don't know, just general principles and the idea of having systems in place and being methodical about the work that you're doing, because it does get so complicated, especially with all the AI that's come out. There's always new tools and evolutions in what that AI can do, even if, you might have a certain subscription to a certain kind of service, but they're introducing new things and new quality of the bots. And you want to design custom versions of those things. And the quality of that can change. And so, yeah, like there's so many things that it's tough because now in a day-to-day job, those are the kinds of things that you're going to have to be expected to do more and more, which people have not been trained on any of this. I mean, right. To be in the workforce and have to understand that almost as a company, in some cases, we need to make sure that our people fully understand how prompts are engineered in a really good way, how to be efficient with that kind of work with the bots, how to have it so that the custom programming is for what they need to do. And on some level, when somebody leaves the company, you need to have somebody else step in and be able to use those same bots. And you know what I mean? So it's like, so then you have to train somebody on how to use this AI that maybe somebody else built that isn't there anymore. Like there's just so many layers of complication. So yeah, it's like, it's totally different skill sets that you need to have. And the way you're going to teach that is going to be different. You're doing it in this ongoing way as you're trying to also just implement these AI tools into the business and make sure they work the way you need them to.
Right.
Like it's just the amount of like shifting layers that are on top of each other. It's like, I don't know if you go to a movie theater and they have like those 3 blocks that are sliding left and right, you hit the button and then you go up a row and then it's those 3 blocks and you hit the button and, I missed one. So now it's 2 blocks. Like it kind of feels like that at times.
Except the blocks are flying at you and they're different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It really is kind of like, it's just like such a crazy level of balancing all of these things and having to do it on the fly while also understanding how your business is evolving, how the industry is evolving, what are those trends, what are your customers telling you about things, what are the day-to-day problems that you've got. Like it's just, I mean, what a crazy, like I hate to use the word overwhelming because on some level I hear it everywhere and it just feels contrived and drives me crazy, but like it's overwhelming, man. It
just is. I mean, the delinquent leadership thing goes further as well because you've got the combined effects of this technology shift and changes in expectations of what employees can do. You've also got work, like remote work is way more normalized now. So junior people aren't getting the sort of mentorship that they might get just by like bumping into someone in the corridor in the office. There's lots of times in my career I can remember where I'm talking to someone in a different department, someone senior, and I learned something about the business just because we were both getting a drink at the same time or something. And then the other layer is existing senior leadership not understanding AI, which is defendable. Most people don't.
Yeah.
Like, even the people building it. But the senior people, let's put it this way. I've worked with a lot of older executives who still want files, like a PowerPoint.ppt file.
Yeah.
Rather than a web-based like Google Slides or Canva or whatever it might be. And it reduces the productivity of the whole team because, the issues with files like version control, having to email them, they're more than 20 megabytes, you can't email it. So many things, like fonts. So many issues have been solved by modern technology, but if they're not being adopted by the most senior decision makers, it kind of like trickles down and slows everyone else down. So that's a real issue too.
Oh, it is such a natural thing because it does change so much that to keep up with the pace of technology for anything, let alone just AI and all the stuff that we're talking about there. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. I mean, if you're not around it every day, you're not experiencing it, and on some level, it's like, oh my, it's just decision fatigue on some level. Like, I've got to learn another thing and implement this other thing. Like,
and you become blind to it, right? But when there's so much noise, you can't see the signal, right? So there could be really important things that you're missing. Well, I guarantee there are. So part of this framework for the observe step, I'm not suggesting you carve out an afternoon and just rapidly go to every news website you can find. There's a number of like bookmark type plugins or browser extensions or just a notepad or whatever it might be. Throughout the course of the week, I'm constantly either emailing myself something or using one of these apps to store it. And then when I'm doing this session by myself, the observe part, I allocate like half an hour to just go through everything I bookmarked that previous few days.
Yeah.
And I find that's, I'm a big tech person. I try every piece of software that comes out. I spend way too much time on 30-day free trials and things like that. And it's honestly just saving like a list of bookmarks and finding time to actually go through and read them. You can AI summarize stuff. There are a lot of tools designed specifically for this, but I find that you spend more time setting it up how you want it than just reading the article.
Yeah. No, there is something to be said for that. It's so funny. I mean, I've had times where I've had custom GPTs that I've worked on, and I've used it for book summaries. And I'll just say like, all right, we're going to summarize this book chapter by chapter, or like, I don't know, section by section, and you're going to give me executive summaries for all of this stuff. And if I'm going to dive into more detail, give it to me. But I mean, to boil down a book that I was planning to read into a 30-minute cram session, basically through a GPT, is like, it is one of those things, and it's beneficial at times. But also I can understand why somebody who's hearing me say this go like, oh my God, I would rather do anything else than learn how to do all of that. Like, just give me the book and let me read the book, you know?
Well, it's dangerous because your brain, you're not going to remember, it's going to miss key points and you're not going to remember it, right? If it's just like you're spending such a short amount of time on a topic. It's web articles in general are kind of like, it's an old school way of thinking, but books get revised and there's an editorial process. You can self-publish books. There's a lot of garbage books, I know, but at least the book has gone through like some kind of process to get made.
Yeah.
Whereas an article, absolute horseshit daily, millions of them. So reading books is a thing. And like, I've seen those summarization ones, and fine. If it's like, what was the main plot of Huckleberry Finn or something? But when it's like, you're trying to better yourself and like educate yourself, I'm not just saying this because of this as well. I think books,
as Pete points to his book for the audio listener. Yeah.
Sorry.
But I get it. I mean, and that's the complicated thing too, is finding how you fit within these things and being able to embrace it. Because to your point, like the whole general idea of this is really, you are forced to be in a situation now where you have to understand how AI operates and be able to delegate tasks to it and make sure that it's getting the proper results. And like, that is such an adaptation, and you do have this natural resistance not to do it. Like one of the things that I've seen, for example, just with TikTok, right? People, you hear about TikTok, you roll your eyes. And I can get why people feel that. I've done that. But then there's times where I'm like, well, listen, everybody of a certain generation, a certain age, is watching TikTok. That is their main way they consume stuff. It's how they search. I mean, it's how they do everything. And when you realize that that is such a focal point of content and just how people function, think about how that's going to impact other things just socially down the line, the way people process the copycat versions of it in other platforms. Like, so the ability to process this technology, adapt to it, and just have to have some level of acceptance of like, I am going to learn these things and just be, I don't know, a mobile generalist in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like that is where things have shifted in a very real way.
I see TikTok is just another evolution of like a distribution channel, right? So if you think back to traditional TV where there was only like 4 channels and cable came out and they're like, oh, cable is 100 channels. You don't know what to watch. It's garbage, right? So it's obviously a much more scaled version of that, but it's just a new way of short form content is its own product in a way, like it's its own art form. TikTok, whether it's Reels or whoever comes up with something new in the future, it's just a distribution channel, I think. Well, one of the things when I was researching this book was looking back at times in history where there's been big technological shifts. And everyone talks about the Industrial Revolution, but I was reading a lot about the very first camera. Mm-hmm. So if you think back in 1800s, maybe 1700s, to get a family portrait, you're just a middle-class family. The camera doesn't exist. No one's ever heard of a camera.
Yep.
You would hire an artist to paint your family, right? And that artist would have been training since they were 8 years old in, like, they had guilds, right?
Yeah.
And they would literally spend their entire lives learning how to paint photo quality, well, it wouldn't be photo quality, real life representations. And this technology came along, and within, a very short space of time, like maybe like a decade, it wiped out that entire industry. So there's a lot we can learn from that, because you've got these people that overnight, in some respects, became irrelevant, but it also unlocked all of the wonderful art that we have seen since. So like Picasso or the Impressionists, like none of that would have happened without the camera forcing artists to do something different. Because once you can like take a picture of the real world, painting the real world is not interesting to them. So there's a number of lessons, right? It's like how to survive, what are the signals, how do you make sure your career can get past this event, but also what are the new forms of creative or art or work or productivity that we're going to get from this. So I find it really sort of inspirational and exciting. There's a lot of bad and scary stuff, but I think looking back to these guys, if you imagine being 8 years old, by the time you're 40, a camera comes. What do you do? Like, you can't reskill. So it was only the very top painters that really survived in terms of like making money, the ones that were doing like royalty and stuff. So yeah, I find it fascinating. And there's a few of those, like obviously the Gutenberg printing press, the internet, so there's a number of in music, there's lots in music, of course, but this one about the artists, because of the way that they dedicate their life to a skill that became irrelevant, is, I think, the best match to what we're going through.
100%. And so obviously, I mean, so much to the point that you've written a book about this. So like for people who want to keep up with you, buy the book, what's the best way to keep up with you, Pete?
Yeah, so my agency website is gds.pro, Gosling Design Studio, and the book is available at relentless-impact.com.
Great. All right. Well, go check out the site. Go check out the book. And Pete, thank you for being here. Appreciate the time.
This is fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.